All right. This panel was a lot more Southeast Asia focused than many of our other panels, which are really on China and Silicon Valley and Silicon Valley hotspots around the world. So to get introduced to this topic, I'd like each one of the panelists to tell us a little bit about what you do and why you're here. Okay, let's pass the mic down. We have several mics roaming around.
Should I start this? Or?
I was going to have Hussein start. Yeah.
Hi, everybody. I run an early stage venture fund in London that invests in European tech companies that we think can go global. People know us by some of our investments. We were the early investor in Deliveroo, which has gone global and is representative of the kinds of things that we do. And I'm here because our companies are starting to spend more time in Asia, and it's good for us as partners to be out here.
I'll come back to you later to hear about your trip here and on your expedition, what you've been finding that's interesting. We'll come back to that. Okay, Mark?
Hi, my name is Mark. I'm a partner at Mind Fund, which is a venture capital fund based in Hong Kong and Japan. I kind of am leading our investments in the crypto space, and maybe I can talk about that a little bit more later.
Okay, yeah. We do have this sort of crypto twist to this panel because there's one other person on this panel who does something in crypto-related stuff. Tina?
Hi everyone, I'm Tina from Cherubic Ventures. We are early stage C fund investing in Greater China and the US. And one of our milestones this year was 琉璃说 went public, because 琉璃说 is our portfolio company. It's our very first company that went IPO, so it's a great milestone, and also congrats to E, one of our very, very first investments. This year has been a great year for us because, you know, some of our investment you might have heard of in the US include Flexport, which is a logistic freight forwarding company. They're from YC, and now they're doing very, very well. And also Calm, which is a meditation app that recently raised a large Series A. So we've been very successful in both US and China. So we recently also launched our new fund, which is a $88 million fund 4, which we will still be focusing on primarily Greater China and US, but starting to also take a look at Southeast Asia. So I'm here today also because I saw a lot of panelists are from this region, so I wanted to just meet them and learn more about, you know, the area. So.
Okay, good. James?
Yeah, my name is James Vuong. I actually came back from Silicon Valley. I joined IDG Ventures, investing in Southeast Asia in 2008, but I focused more on investing in Vietnam. That's when I met Rebecca, and when she wrote the book about, I guess, the follow-on to Silicon Dragon.
The second one, Startup Asia.
Right.
James introduced me to a number of portfolio companies in Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City. And so I got to meet all the IDG venture portfolio companies then. It was really very interesting. And I'm sure the market's changed a lot since then.
Yeah, it's been more than a little bit more than 10 years. So I did actually VC for about 6 years. And then I went to take over one of our portfolio companies, and I grew it about 4x after that. Got acquired by Lion Corporation last year. And I stayed on, so I'm still the CEO of the Vietnam subsidiary until the end of the year. But I started a new company. It's based out of Singapore, and it's not really crypto, but it's definitely leveraging, blockchain. We basically will have a very simple vision, which is to allow anyone in the world to invest in real estate anywhere in the world, and do it very simply, as simple as trading online, buying stock. And it's all on the blockchain. So that's what we do. And the company is called RealStake.
Hi everyone, I'm Victor from Vynn Capital. We are an early stage VC fund focusing on Southeast Asia and predominantly looking at travel tech, prop tech, food tech, and femtech, as in female related kind of services and technology. Personally, I was with Gobi Partners from China in Southeast Asia, and prior to that, I was with the government fund from Malaysia, also looking at early stage investments. Yes, thank you.
So how does the panel see the Southeast Asian market shaping up compared to what's happening in China? Victor, we can start with you.
I think overall Southeast Asia is still growing, especially with countries like Vietnam, Indonesia, that are getting a lot more attention from China, from Japan, from Korea. I think one of the key theme that we see, or as a VC we see, what Southeast Asia has to offer is that there's a huge inflow of North Asian companies going to Southeast Asia, and we call this the train to ASEAN rather than train to Busan. So there's a lot of Koreans in Malaysia, for example, and there's also a lot of Chinese companies in Southeast Asia. In fact, not just the big companies, but even the startups that we speak to are from China, and they are spinning off their operations to be based out of either Jakarta or Singapore, and that's where we see the real opportunity is for Southeast Asia, is to bridge the gap or to become the platform to welcome our friends from China, from Taiwan, from Japan and Korea.
Do you see a lot of the Chinese tech giants coming in to the market, the Southeast Asia market? Yeah, Victor, let's stay with you for a second.
Yes, there is a lot. I mean, as we know, Alibaba has been doing a lot in Southeast Asia. In Malaysia, they have their digital free trade zone with the Malaysian government. Even JD has a partnership with one of the groups in Indonesia, and we see a lot more of that in different jurisdictions. But however, I think a lot of the Chinese investors, a lot of Chinese companies are still trying to learn and acclimatize to the local markets in Southeast Asia. I think just quoting what the founder of RealStake just mentioned just now, you gotta be localized. You need to understand what the consumers, what the ultimate people who are going to use your services really need. So it takes a bit of time, especially when we see companies like C-Trip. They have been building their base in Bali. And we have not seen them, expanding very aggressively beyond those hotspots because it's still a learning process, and that's where the local startups can actually help provide that kind of knowledge transfer as well.
Okay. Anyone else on that question? Tina or James?
Well, we're just starting to look at this area, but already we're seeing a lot of returnees. There could be Chinese, even Americans are going into Southeast Asia because it's similar to maybe China, but then 10, 15 years ago, where there's a lot of opportunity because the infrastructure are just not there. So there's a lot more things you could do. But I do think there is a major difference, which is China is this one huge land, right? People speak the same language, similar culture. But then Southeast Asia is actually 6 different countries. And then you have the Philippines, which is thousands of islands. So a lot of the logistics and many different things. Actually, it's going to take a lot more time to reach the growth of China, I think. So I think it actually requires patience, capital, but then we're seeing all this influx of capital, right? Especially in Indonesia, where everything becomes very, startups become very expensive. So it's a very interesting phenomenon, I think.
No, I was invited to speak at this conference in Bangkok in June, and it was just over the top. I couldn't believe how big it was, and just all the graphics and the displays, and it made every other tech conference I've been to look small. And this was out of Bangkok. So I think we are seeing this wave coming up, and certainly the Chinese tech giants are in there investing big time. So what do you see, since we have a panel of investors who are looking at new markets and into new markets, you from London into Asia and you from Hong Kong into Japan and Silicon Valley, what do you see as kind of some of the mistakes that you see others making, and what mistake are you trying to avoid? What's your strategy for entering these new markets?
So one of our partners is a company called Digital Garage. So they're a Tokyo-based company, very big globally. And so they've created this initiative called the Global Incubation Stream. So what it is Digital Garage has invested in a bunch of accelerators across the world. So Alt Turtles, that's run by Joe Lubin, I think, in San Francisco, BetaWorks in New York, and MindFund is running an accelerator here in Hong Kong called Helix Accelerator, which is a crypto accelerator. And so, the global incubation stream is there to help the best graduates of the accelerators go global. So, we have us in Asia. They also have other partners in like Japan and North America. So it creates this really global network. So that's what part of our strategy. Yeah.
And what mistakes have you seen others do when they enter new markets that you're trying to avoid?
Well, they enter without probably understanding the culture. So maybe, not getting a local team or local expertise before they enter. Maybe moving a little too quickly.
Sure. Okay. Hussein, from your perspective?
Yeah, so we're not actively investing anywhere in Asia, but a bunch of our companies have opened up offices here. So the biggest learning that we've seen is you need to fuse the company culture with local culture. So you need to run one model because you can't have different versions of your company running around and all over the world. But at the same time, you have to be very sensitive towards what's going on the ground and be able to, the hardest thing is how do you take feedback from a region and then tweak your global product to accommodate both the global market as well as the local market. And the hardest thing is it all boils down to people and trust. Usually what ends up happening is the local office that understands the culture doesn't have enough sway with the global team that's actually building the product and can't get them to tweak the features to localize correctly because the guys in headquarters don't understand what the local guys are asking for, and the local folks don't have enough political goodwill inside the master organization to be able to get the feature kind of done. And the only way to do this is to make sure that the folks can build trust, and the easiest thing that we've seen is for the local folks to spend time in headquarters and then be able to build those relationships. So when they go back in the field, they have some goodwill and credibility to be able to do that. That's the single biggest mistake that we've seen people make to be able to do this well.
Yeah, that certainly is a big one, and continues to be a big one. There doesn't seem to be much of a lesson learned there from the multinationals or the startups in that journey. So, are you going to be investing in Asia, you think?
Probably not. I think there are a lot of other people who are much better investors in the local markets here. But a lot of our companies are moving over. So we have this AI healthcare company in London that signed a partnership with Tencent, and they're going to be baked into as the medical service in WeChat. And it's a London-based company that's doing it. Delivers on the ground here, delivering food, and has been for a few years now. And one of our cybersecurity companies has a big presence all over Asia. About 20-30% of the revenue is now in Asia. So as our companies move here, we want to be very active in terms of being able to help them. So we're starting to spend more time here.
And what's your judgment of what you see here on the ground? You've been to the region several times, and what's your view of what's happening here?
So
particularly, compared to Europe, because Europe seems to be, the venture scene seems to be pretty dead, right?
Yeah, and just I'm following the politics today, which the UK has decided that it's pulling out formally of everyone is now quitting their jobs in the government. It's very entertaining. It's a political soap opera. I'm an American, so I don't have very much stake in Europe, apart from the fact that I invest over there. If you separate Asia and you separate kind of mainland China from the rest of Asia, scale is just a whole different level, right? So I'm very happy with the success of Deliveroo. It's a global company. It's in lots of different places. And then you just compare it against Meituan, and the scale is just, it's not even comparable, right? I think anyone who invested in Uber would be very happy if from the early days, but you compare that to Didi, and the scale is just, again, not comparable. So I think if you're a European company, and it's hard to get this across with a lot of Europeans, you cannot focus on the Europe market. You have to focus on the global market. And if you're going to focus on the global market, that means focusing on Asia and the US. But unfortunately, Europe has a very long heritage, and it's hard for people to understand that they have to think far more global, and their kind of local market doesn't really matter as much as these other markets do.
Yeah, and the work ethic. I mean, things close up at 5 o'clock, right? And people take a 2-hour lunch break, and there's all those holidays. Anyhow, nothing like the 996. So let's turn a little bit to technology innovation. Let's talk about what you're seeing that's hot in tech that you've already invested in, or you might be investing in the future. What's hot in tech? James, I know what you're going to say.
All right, so I guess I'm the don't label me as the crypto guy. I actually was very skeptical of crypto. Good to I think he'll be a better evangelist for crypto. But it's definitely with all the
Not me.
with all the hype and all the sort of the it's in the bear market now, so things are, people are kind of like don't really want to talk about it. But I think the whole point is the technology itself does have. So the way that, even with my own company, the way that I approach it is I want to solve some kind of problem, and I want to use existing technology or new technology to do what I cannot do before. And if blockchain is the answer, then I think that's the way to do it. Rather than saying, okay, well, let's take the solution and go look for a problem to solve. They're sort of two extreme, right? One extreme is the people who are skeptical and think that there's a lot of scam, and even the technology is nothing but a distributed database. And actually, even in the early days of Facebook, right? Facebook is just like a bunch of web page. Instead of linking to another page, you link to a person, and you can kind of dump it down to that, and then don't really see anything interesting about it, right? Or that's sort of on the one extreme, and to say that, okay, crypto blockchain is like nothing but just like a distributed database. And on the other hand is to say that, well, blockchain is going to solve everything, is going to be the thing, is going to change everything. And I think that a lot of the basic business fundamental, basic everything is still stands. It can change a lot of things. For example, Bitcoin has been proven to be a store of value. It may be not a good payment solution, but it's definitely a store of value. It can probably replace some of the gold. It's very sort of sensor resistant. It's actually been proven to work, but you never know. It could become zero if people start losing faith. And so I guess my point is, either extreme is bad. It is definitely one of the newer technology that everybody's interested in, and I think it's good to view it as solving a problem that maybe you were not able to solve before with the old technology.
Okay, and Victor, why are you investing in this space?
Southeast Asia in particular, or
No, the crypto
we are
blockchain area.
well, we're not actively looking at crypto as per se as at this point of time. Even blockchain, there is some certain reservation around that whole hype over there. Partly because there are just too many entrepreneurs who slap a blockchain logo on their company and ask for a ridiculous valuation, and chances are we don't see good engineers that are working on the concept. There's just too many white papers that has not been really successful. And just to give a bit of a number, I think for Malaysia, 2017, based on what we know from the central bank, hopefully this doesn't go out publicly, but there were 4...
Sorry, I think it may be...
Okay, there were 4 ICOs that, I'll take the risk. There were 4 ICOs that were submitted. Out of 4, 1 was done in Singapore, 3 was found out to be scams. So there's just too much fluff around that particular theme. So for us, we kind of take a step back. So the things that we look at are, in a way, less exciting as compared to what James is looking at, what our Chinese friends are looking at. We're looking at how we can help with digitization of certain industries. So a bit more traditional in the sense where we focus a lot more on, say, for example, travel tech. Because travel tech is big for Southeast Asia, especially like what Tina pointed out. We are a region with so many countries, so many different kind of cultures, and so tourism becomes a key, commonality that pulls everyone together. At the same time, we see a lot of factors, external factors, for example, with a lot of attention from United Nations, who's trying to focus more on helping SMEs and helping tourism sector to go to the next level, which is why we are also a partner for UNWTO on how do we actually help to educate the members, especially governments as well as agencies, ministries, and larger corporates on how they could actually adopt technology. So I think for us, we prefer that more down-to-earth kind of strategy rather than jump straight into blockchain. But we do look at blockchain as well, just how do that integrate with the traditional sectors.
I see. Got it. Anyone else want to comment on what interests you in tech?
Yeah, so we're pretty focused on crypto. So as I mentioned before, we're starting this accelerator program called Helix, and that's in partnership with a company called Hedera Hashgraph. So I think they raised 124 million US in 2018, and I totally agree that there's a lot of scams in the crypto space. I think I was looking at this website, and out of like over 1,000 ICOs, I think only 80 are above their ICO price. So MindFund, we invested in crypto in 2017, and we obviously saw that this was not sustainable, right? So we decided to go deep instead of wide. And when we came across the Hedera Hashgraph guys, they're kind of like adults playing in an industry full of children. That's the way I kind of see them. And so we were really impressed with them. We made a big bet on their technology, on their team, and we wanted to help foster the ecosystem as much as we can. And so they actually took a look at what we've done in the past with funding other accelerators, and they asked us to create an accelerator for them in partnership with them. So that's what we're doing. We're recruiting globally. We're recruiting from a global hackathon that Hashgraph held in 8 different cities around the world. And so, I'm pretty excited about it.
Okay, good. Tina?
Yeah, so our fund, we have different strategies for different regions. I think in the US, we can afford to be a little bit more deep tech oriented just because that market has more patience and tolerance. So we've been investing in automation, retail innovation. But I think in Asia, we're still more focusing on consumer experience. So for example, recently we invest in company in Taiwan. Actually, they're using AI technology to record the world's top 20 world-winning coffee barista, the way they make coffee, right? And they make that, and then they make it into a really premium coffee machine, along with those rare and very hard to get coffee beans, and make that into a package, and also helping those baristas to send more of their coffee to more people, making it accessible. So yes, the technology is hard, but it's not like rocket science. But it's combining that, but then making it very consumer driven and interesting for everybody. So yeah.
Okay. Hussein?
So I'm contrarian on this. I'm not smart enough to know what the next generation trends are. If I was, I'd be going off and building the companies. I'm really good at when people come in the door who are a lot smarter than me, figuring out if I should write a check to them and letting them kind of succeed and build on their vision. So I don't know. I mean, thematically, I think there's a lot of change happening in the world. There's lots of stuff happening in security, lots of stuff happening in healthcare, lots of stuff happening in food. But if I could figure out what the company would be, I'd go off and found it myself.
What's the biggest problem you see that needs to be fixed?
I think these are like sectors, right, where there obviously changes, right, and there's a bunch of next generation technology that impacts them,
Yeah.
but I don't know what the solutions
Well,
are.
transportation is
Transportation is
gotta
another
be one,
yeah.
right?
And I think food is like super interesting, right? Because the population of the world is growing, and our ability to produce the right amount of food, and especially as standards get higher in terms of what we want in terms of quality, there's going to be change in that market. The challenge is I just don't know how to fix that. I know that there's going to be stuff there. I just don't know what it is. So when people much smarter than me walk in the door with a really good vision, hopefully I'll be lucky enough to be able to write them a check and participate as part of a bigger dream.
Okay, good. I think we're going to wrap it there. And